Okay, let's unpack this. In the world of sports, we love a good nickname, right?
Right.
But usually they're just marketing fluff. The king, the chosen one, the truth. They sound cool, but they don't really tell you how the athlete plays.
Right.
But then, every once in a blue moon, you get a nickname that's basically a warning label, a literal description of the physics involved.
You are talking about Bazooka.
Wilfredo Bazooka Gómez. Today, we are diving deep into the life of the man who many people argue is the greatest puncher Puerto Rico has ever produced. And I know greatest is a loaded word. It starts arguments. But you have a statistic that you say ends the debate right there.
I do. And honestly, it's the main reason we're doing this deep dive. If you just strip away all the nostalgia, all the hype, and you look at the cold, hard data, Wilfredo Gómez did something that nobody else has. Not Ali, not Tyson, not Canelo.
All right, hit me with it. What's the magic number?
17. Specifically, 17 consecutive knockouts in championship title defenses.
Wait, say that again?
Once he won the belt, he defended it 17 times in a row, and every single one of his opponents was either unconscious or just couldn't continue. That is the all-time record across every single weight division in the history of boxing.
That sounds like a video game stat. Like you set the difficulty to easy, 17 title fights without ever needing a judge.
Exactly. And in modern boxing, it's basically statistically impossible. Promoters protect fighters. Guys fight maybe once a year. Gómez was fighting 3-4 times a year against the best guys and just violently finishing all of them.
So that's the bazooka part, but looking at the stack of research you've pulled, it seems like that explosive power came with a massive amount of collateral damage, both in and out of the ring.
And that's the mission for this deep dive. We have to trace that whole trajectory. I mean, it's a story about a kid rising from extreme poverty in San Juan, becoming this national deity, and then that slow, painful unraveling that happens when the cheering stops. We're going to look at the fights, of course, but we also have to talk about a stadium collapse in Thailand, a tragic car crash in Mexico, and, well, a hostage situation in 2022 that honestly reads like a movie script.
It's a heavy one, but let's start where all good stories start, the beginning. We're going to Las Monjas.
Right, Las Monjas, in the Hato district of San Juan. We're talking 1950s Puerto Rico. Gómez was born in October 56, and the source material is really specific about the environment. This is not a story of privilege. His dad was a taxi driver, his mom was a homemaker. They were scraping by.
I saw a note here about a bicycle that really stuck with me.
Yeah, that's the iconic image of his youth,
Yeah.
He wasn't getting dropped off at some fancy gym in an SUV. He was this scrawny kid on a beat-up bicycle just hustling, selling candy on the streets to make pocket money. It paints that picture of that classic hunger, both literally and figuratively. He didn't just want to fight, he needed to fight.
And usually with these stories, you hear about the kid getting beaten up and learning to defend himself. But reading his amateur record, it seems like Gómez just came with the hardware pre-installed.
Oh, he was a prodigy. There's really no other word for it. He started amateur boxing and put together a record that is just, it's frankly terrifying. 96 wins, 3 defeats.
96-3. That's absurd. But amateur boxing is usually about points, right? Just tagging the other guy. Is he knocking people out back then, too?
He was, yeah. He had that heavy-handed quality even as a teenager. He went to the 1972 Munich Olympics, which is a whole other story, but he got bounced in the first round. He was young, but he learned fast. By 74, he's winning gold at the World Championships in Azana.
Okay, so here's where the timeline gets interesting for me. If you win the Worlds in 74, the 1976 Montreal Olympics are right there. That's the golden ticket. You win Olympic gold, you get the big signing bonus. Why didn't he wait?
That is the critical question. And it brings us right back to that bicycle and selling candy. It was simple economics. The source material really emphasizes that his family was struggling. And 2 years is a long time when you're broke. He couldn't afford the luxury of waiting. He had to cash in on his hands right away.
Wow. That's a tough choice for a teenager. So he turns pro, but he doesn't go to Vegas or Madison Square Garden.
No. And this shows you how gritty the sport was back then. He moved to Panama.
Panama? Why Panama?
It was a hotbed for boxing in Latin America, but it wasn't glamorous at all. He basically used Panama as a home base to tour Central America, fighting in these humid, hostile little arenas for small paydays. It was a real apprenticeship. And weirdly enough, for a guy we know as a knockout artist, his professional debut was a dud.
I was surprised by this in the notes. A draw.
Yeah. Panama City, November 1974. He fights a guy named Jacinto Fuentes. 6 rounds. The judges scored it in a draw.
Imagine being in the crowd that night. You're watching this kid debut. He looks okay, but you have no idea you're watching, like, the future of the sport.
It is the ultimate calm before the storm. Because after that draw, something just clicked. Maybe he got angry, but he did not leave it to the judges again for a very, very long time.
This is the start of the streak.
The streak. After that draw, Gómez went on an absolute rampage. 32 consecutive knockouts.
Hold on. 32 fights in a row?
32 fights, 32 knockouts. And he even circled back to clean up his record. He fought Jacinto Fuentes again, the guy he drew with.
Let me guess, it didn't go to the scorecards.
Knockout. Round 2, he was settling debts. And just for context, that streak ties him with Deontay Wilder for one of the longest knockout streaks in history. But Gómez was doing it at super bantamweight, where that kind of one-punch power is way, way rare.
So he's tearing through everyone. He needs a title shot.
And he gets it.
Yeah.
May 1977. But this is where we see the heart behind the power. He's fighting Dong-Kyun Yum, the champion from South Korea. The fight's in San Juan. The atmosphere is electric. And 30 seconds into the fight, Gómez is on the canvas.
Bazooka gets dropped.
Flat on his back. The whole crowd just goes silent. This is the moment where a bully usually folds, you know?
Yeah.
Guys who are used to dishing it out but can't take it.
Right. The everyone has a plan till they get punched in the mouth moment.
Exactly. But Gómez got up. He shook it off, picked it on his mouthpiece, and just dragged Yum into a war. He ended up knocking him out in the 12th round. That proved he wasn't just a hammer, he was an anvil, too.
So he's the champ, a national hero. But there's a story in your notes about a title defense in Thailand that I had to read it twice because it sounds like a horror story.
It is. And it's a story that often gets buried, but we have to talk about it. He was fighting Sagat Pechinindi. A serious fighter Sagat actually inspired the character in the Street Fighter video games.
Wait, really? The guy with the eye patch?
The very same.
Yeah.
But the opponent wasn't the issue that night. It was the venue. They were in this stadium in Thailand. It was wildly overcrowded. And before the main event, a structural column just gave way.
The building collapsed.
A partial collapse. It was absolute chaos. 10 people died. 300 were injured. Sirens, people screaming, debris everywhere.
And they let the fight happen.
That's the part that's just so hard to process today. You'd cancel the event immediately. But this was 1978. The organizers, the TV money, they cleared the ring, ignored the tragedy unfolding in the stands, and they rang the bell.
That is unbelievable. How do you even focus on a fight when people just died 50 feet away from you?
It speaks to the terrifying focus of a fighter. You have to shut off your humanity to do what they do. Gómez shut everything off. He went out and knocked Pechinindi out in 2 rounds.
It's impressive, but it's also chilling. It adds this really dark layer to that 17 knockout record. It wasn't just sport. It was blood sport.
It was. And the streak just kept building. Which leads us to the collision course, the biggest fight of his life, the battles of the little giants.
Carlos Zárate.
Carlos Zárate. And we have to set the stage here. Zárate was the bantamweight champion from Mexico, a legend. He came into the fight with a record of 55 wins, 0 losses.
Okay, 55-0 is incredible.
It gets better. 54 knockouts.
Stop it. So you have Gómez with his streak and Zárate with a 98% knockout ratio. This is basically King Kong versus Godzilla.
And the Puerto Rico versus Mexico boxing rivalry is maybe the most intense in the sport. The nationalism, the pressure. They met in San Juan. Everyone expected this long, grueling war.
And
it was a massacre. But not both ways. Gómez just destroyed him, overwhelmed him with power. He stopped an undefeated legend in the 5th round.
That has to be the peak, right? That is the moment you are on top of Everest.
But was the absolute apex. He was arguably the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. But as we see in so many of these stories, the peak is a dangerous place. Because where do you go from there? You look for bigger dragons to slay.
And the bigger dragon was Salvador Sanchez.
The legendary Chava Sanchez.
Yeah.
So Gómez decides to move up in weight to featherweight to challenge him. Now, moving up only a few pounds doesn't sound like a big deal, but at those weights, it's a massive percentage of your body mass. The guys are just naturally bigger.
And Sanchez wasn't just bigger. He was a master technician, right?
A genius. An absolute genius in the ring. Incredible cardio, an iron shin. They met in Vegas in '81, and this time, the bazooka misfired. He hit Sanchez with everything he had, and Sanchez just smiled at him. Gómez started taking a beating.
The bully finally met someone he couldn't bully.
And he was stopped in the 8th round, his first loss as a pro. It devastated him. I think he had bought into his own invincibility.
But he didn't quit, and I think this next part is what makes the story so tragic. He was obsessed with getting a rematch.
Totally obsessed. He went back down to super bantamweight, defended his title, beat some good guys, but he was always just waiting. He needed to beat Sanchez to make his soul whole again.
But he never got the chance.
No. August 12th, 1982. Salvador Sanchez was driving his Porsche in Mexico. He crashed, died instantly.
That's just gut-wrenching. For Gómez, his defining rival is just gone. There's no closure.
None. And there's a moment here that I think really speaks to Gómez's character. He was scheduled to defend his own title just 5 days later. But when he heard the news, he stopped his training camp. He flew to Mexico.
In the middle of fight week.
In the middle of fight week. He went to the funeral, offered flowers to the family of the man who beat him, paid his respects, and then flew back to Puerto Rico that same afternoon to finish his weight cut.
That is pure class. Just total respect.
It is. He won his fight that weekend, but you could tell something had changed. The fire was different. He did eventually move up and win the featherweight title, the one he failed to get from Sanchez by beating Juan Laporte. So he became a two-weight champion.
But the clock was ticking.
It was. The lifestyle was catching up. The training camps were getting shorter, the partying longer. He lost the title to Azuma Nelson, another all-time great by knockout.
And yet he kept going. Why do they always keep going?
Money. Ego. It's their identity. He moved up again to super featherweight and fought Rocky Lockridge for a third world title. And the judges gave it to Gómez.
I hear a but in your voice there.
It was. Well, it was a gift, a hometown decision.
Yeah.
Most people felt Lockridge won that fight pretty clearly. Gómez was a shadow of his old self. He won the belt, but he kind of lost the aura, and he lost the title in his very next fight. That was pretty much the end.
He retired.
He did. And this is where the story gets really messy, because now you have a man with not much education, a lot of money, at least for a while, and this adrenaline addiction that normal life just can't satisfy.
His civilian life problem.
Yeah. He tried broadcasting for a bit, and he was okay at it, but the demons were loud. He moved to Venezuela, and the reports from that time are just dark.
Yeah.
Drugs, legal troubles. He ended up spending months in a Venezuelan jail.
It's the cliche we just hate to see. The champion who can conquer the world but can't conquer himself.
He hit rock bottom. But to his credit, he sought help. Went to rehab in Colombia, got clean. He came back to Puerto Rico in the late 90s, became a born-again Christian. It really looked like he'd found some peace.
But then, 2022 happened. I need you to walk me through this, because when I first read about it, I thought it had to be a tabloid rumor. This was real.
Well, it was very real. March 2022, Gómez is in his mid-60s, and reports start coming out that he's missing. Turns out, he was allegedly being held hostage in his own home.
Hostage? By who?
By his partner at the time, a woman named Diana Sevilla Villalobos. The allegations were that she had completely isolated him, cut him off from his family, and was controlling him in a state of just utter squalor.
That is horrifying. The man who stood up to Carlos Zárate was trapped in his own house. How did he get out?
This is the part that's like a movie. His estranged wife, Carolina Gamboa, his son, and his friend Victor Callejas, who's a former world champion himself, they literally staged a rescue.
The wife and his boxing buddy kicked the door down.
Essentially. They went in, confronted the woman, and just pulled him out of there. The photos from that day are heartbreaking. He's disheveled, confused. They took him straight to a psychiatric hospital.
That is just a wild, tragic twist. Is he okay now?
He is. The latest reports say he recovered. He's back with his wife, Carolina, and he's safe. But it's just such a stark reminder of how vulnerable these guys can become.
It really changes how you look at the Bazooka nickname. Inside the ring, he was the weapon. Outside the ring, he was just a man.
And that's the duality of his legacy. Puerto Rico reveres him. There's Wilfredo Gómez boxing gym, the sporting complex. He's a god in San Juan. But when you look closer, you see all the scars.
So when we step back and look at the whole picture, from the kid selling candy to the 17 straight knockouts, the jail cell, the rescue, what's the takeaway? Why does Wilfredo Gómez still matter?
I think he matters because he represents the absolute limit of offensive boxing. That record 17 consecutive title defenses by knockout, that's his monument. It is a statistical anomaly that I truly believe will never be broken. The sport has changed too much. Risk management has taken over. Gómez fought with a reckless, beautiful violence that we just don't see anymore.
He's a relic of a harder era.
He is.
Yeah.
And he reminds us that greatness, that kind of greatness anyway, it requires a kind of madness. You don't get to 32 straight knockouts by being a balanced, well-adjusted person. You do it by having a fire that burns everything around it, including, eventually, yourself.
That is the heavy price. You know, we watch these fights, we cheer for the knockout, we want to see the bazooka fire, but we rarely stick around to see what happens to the soldier after the war is over.
Well said.
Wilfredo Gómez is a living testament to both the glory and the cost of the fight game. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. It is a story that definitely packs a punch.